In the first year, in 81, we had 3 in the school of the 17 that commenced. Next year it doubled to about 30 odd, and then the next year it doubled again to 60 odd.
So we started out with 1 teacher.
Yes, Anne Paget.
Yep.
Yeah,
And,
brave woman.
My main involvement was part of the building program in the early days. I can remember myself and Pam McLennan spending hours just trying to nut through all this stuff. 12 months worth of red tape trying to get through just to get the opportunity to be able to go there and finally start.
We came here and put the block that was at the Church of Christ, we brought it around under police escort.
I remember turning up to paint that first building.
This building, which was basically classrooms and a teacher's room, got converted into an admin block.
There was a couple of main buildings, the office.
People going past thought that was it. They were the classrooms. It was a school with 4 classrooms. We added an entrance to that front block, and that changed the way people viewed the school, and people became more interested.
One of the biggest obstacles we had with clearing the, what do they call it, the human waste. Eventually had to go for a fairly reasonable big septic tank. It had to be then inspected. She had to peel the top off it, and stick your head down in there and check that the little float pumps in there was all working, but then the pump inlets would block up, so you'd have to jump in there and get that stuff out. Yeah, I had to do that a couple of times.
I remember walking into school and there wasn't that amazing junior playground. It was kind of a grassy hill, which we enjoyed rolling down.
I remember my year 1 or stage 1 class was where the staff room is now.
We didn't have that whole block from the car park, you know, Hall, Benbooker, K Block and half the Oval didn't exist in the school site.
We very much coveted having the block next door.
We bought the block next door that was there. That was huge. I know that there were lots of the founding fathers that had a real vision for that.
It wasn't possible while I was there, but I was pleased to hear later that it became available.
My daughter goes to school here now. It's changed a lot since I was here. All the demountables are gone, and actually when we did a walk through the school, I was blown away by how big it is now.
There wasn't the learning hub, there was a full-size basketball court.
I remember the library had very bright green carpet.
One of the pivotal buildings was certainly the Learning Hub.
Those K3 buildings, I remember seeing them being put in, I think, year 5. That was like cranes coming in, that was cool.
Yeah, I remember taking one of my art classes down to the fence line and watching K Block being craned in, because I thought that doesn't happen every day. Soon after that, Benbooker went up and the new basketball court, and it was great to see the hall going up last year.
We had a great time of having Mrs. Art Brown teaching in one half of the room and Mrs. Cook and Brown teaching in the other half of the room.
There was a break in here, so I remember spending one night in the school just in case somebody came in.
Back in the early days, the kids would come in and they would all play either handball or touch football or whatever it was together. And it didn't matter how old anybody was.
We had primary and junior secondary, but we were moving into senior secondary during that time. As the planning started for that, we were looking to be a year out. Those year 10s came to us as a group and said, we don't want to leave Orange Christian School. We want to stay here. We'd like you to go a year earlier than you're planning.
The first year that we had HSC and the first graduation that came through from that too.
Probably with the principal at the time, Mr. Metcalf. He actually had a pretty big impact on my life. I remember him dragging me and one of my good mates, Matt Holland, into a room and told us that we were both on the verge of being expelled, and we had to pull our head in, and that he was going to make his decision that day. And he decided that instead of doing that, he was going to put me on the student service committee. And as a result, sorted me out, actually.
The day that we had the first of the ex-students that came through on the board was a really significant time as well.
I think a lot of fond memories are based in those relational shared experiences. So obviously the camps along the way.
I remember at 6 Foot Track in year 8, it wasn't my group, but another group got very, very lost, and I think it was actually because someone changed the sign.
Seeing the way that, I guess, musicals have evolved.
I remember in year 9, our teacher was held up for some reason. We decided to pass all the classroom furniture outside the window.
I can still clearly remember standing watching this truck with a building on it come down the side of the school, and the building swayed and we thought it's going to collapse, but it didn't.
Well, I think one of the things is the joy of seeing the kids graduating, and seeing their jobs and seeing them now as parents bringing their own children here.
Children are gifts into families, they're given to parents, and so when you want to have a school involved, there has to be a partnership.
So when we first started, way back then in the Church of Christ, it would be a matter of parents were hands-on with everything.
The idea of the board being a board of parents was very strong then.
Parents did the school newsletter, I remember. Lots of hours sitting at a typewriter, something you don't know about these days.
Of course, parents clean the school too, and obviously the children were very tidy.
People weren't paid to do the office work and people weren't paid to do anything really apart from the teachers.
Definitely benefited from my parents being an integral part of the school.
Stephen went, or I went, on just about every excursion, and that was great. I really enjoyed spending that time, particularly doing things like the 6-foot track where it was 3 days and you got to know all the other kids. Those things will always be really special. It's going to make me cry.
Parents are certainly the primary educators of their children, and even though the school is probably now at a size where it doesn't need to rely on parents as much as it needed to in those days, it's still really important.
Parents feeling valued and staff who really have a passion for Christian education together.
It was just a really close and special time. We were really involved.
Would I do it again? Yeah.
Looking into the future, I'd like to see the school be able to maintain a real family atmosphere.
God's model for society is a family-based model.
To be able to come back, grandparents, parents, kids, great-grandparents, and be welcomed into the school.
Ultimately, the education of our children and our grandchildren is more our responsibility than the system that we put them in.
My hope is that parents will continue to hold the school very accountable for what they're teaching.
I hope we continue to look outside the box to see how we can enhance our community, both for academics and for our Christian culture.
Maybe even a, 2-storey high building, that would be special.
Honestly, I think the school's pretty great.
What I hope remains the same is that we have that steady Christian focus, that Christ is always at the heart of everything that we do, that we can help those students who have made a commitment in Christ to help grow and mature, but also those who are still searching to come to a better understanding of Christ.
Well, I'd love to have a Christian university here.
Raising effective leaders of godly character and looking at that blending of academics and biblical truth and doing things for the glory of God, I think it's timeless.
I just wish you my heartiest congratulations for 40 years.
And beautiful to be able to see how that original vision and mission and the passion for Christian education has just grown and developed over the years.
It's a wonderful time to remember those days when people worked hard and with great faith to make something that they couldn't even see at that time. And I think that's a beautiful thing that God does through us and through communities like Orange Christian School. Thank you.